Hey everybody, Courtney Smith here, and I want to now start the serious project of telling you about Global Freedom Lifestyle. Global Freedom Lifestyle is a lifestyle where you live globally. You live where you want, you do what you want, you do it how you want, with whom you want. It's all about freedom. And it gives you the ability to be global. You don't have to be global. You can stay in one spot, no problem, but you have the freedom to go global. And you get to find the lifestyle that's closest to what you want. There's always compromises in life, let's be honest. But we always want to get closer to what we want. And that's what this is all about. I'm going to do 2 videos on the theory of a global freedom lifestyle. The theory. 2 videos. This is going to be about the overall theory and the modern history of GFL. The second video, which will come later, will be about the theory of the practice, okay? Now, what does that mean? In other words, I'm really talking theory in this one. The next one, I'm going to talk about what are the most important things you need to know from a practical perspective. So, for example, healthcare, telephone, internet, the things that you need day in and day out in order to live a GFL. This video is going to be pure theory of the very highest level. We're going to be at 35,000 feet. 10,000 meters for those of you who aren't American. So this is going to be very intense. Please take notes while I'm going through these things. Rewatch the video. You're going to need it. Cut out distractions because we're going to dive deep into the theory of a global freedom lifestyle. So let's talk about the modern beginnings. I mean, let's face it, Genghis Khan had a global freedom lifestyle, but he had to do it on the back of a horse and he had to kill all his enemies. Let's talk about the modern beginnings of a global freedom lifestyle. So, to me, it really starts with this gentleman here, Harry Schultz. And back in the 1960s, actually, going back further than that, he's still alive, but he was born in 1923. He's 98 years old now, and he's been retired since 2010. So 11 years ago, he retired in his late 80s. Now, when he was a young man, he fought in World War II and was stationed in China, in Shanghai, and he started trading currency and gold and so on and so forth. And he raised enough money that when he got back to the United States, he was able to buy a failing newspaper in Palm Springs. So even in his teens, he was living a global freedom lifestyle. If you call fighting for the U.S. Army a freedom lifestyle, I don't, but at least it was global. The point is that he then bought and sold 13 newspapers. I think he owned the Orange County Register at one point, was his biggest newspaper. But the point being is that he then started on his life of a global freedom lifestyle in the 1960s. And he then moved overseas from the United States and lived overseas for the rest of his life. And some people claim he actually never came back to the United States at all. He would give speeches only through video conferencing. So Harry Schultz came up with the 3 flags theory. And basically what the 3 flags were is you need to have a place where your citizenship was, you needed a different location where your business was, and you needed a third location where your playground was. So for example, for Schultz, his citizenship was, he was a U.S. citizen. But he wrote a newsletter, an investment newsletter, and he did it from Sydney, Australia. He did it from Canada. He did it from Monaco. He did it from London. He did it from many places. So his business moved around to different countries. Now, I think for Schultz, I'm not quite sure where his playgrounds were. I have a feeling that because he was very intellectual, his playgrounds were the same place that his business was. But let's say he was a surfer. Well, then when he wanted to surf, his playground would be, say, Australia or Hawaii or wherever. So he could go there. Now, since he lived in places like Monaco, Sydney, and London, there's a lot of playground activities there. Maybe he was an opera fan and he would go to the Sydney Opera. I don't know. But he started this concept of 3 flags. But now we're way beyond that. Now we look at the flags that you plant, and let's go through each one of these. Citizenship. This is where we're at now. And there, some people say there's 6 flags, 7 flags. It doesn't matter. Here's what I look at. You need to have citizenship someplace. You don't want to be a stateless person. So we're going to talk about how to have multiple citizenships, okay? We don't want to be stuck with just one citizenship. We want to be a citizen of multiple countries for the flexibility and safety. Residence. You may want to have one place. You may love surfing, so you want to be on the Gold Coast of Australia so you can surf every day. You could be like me. I don't want to have a residence. I have to have a legal residence, and I do have a legal residence. But I like to physically move around. I like to experience new cultures. So a residence can be a single place or multiple place. In the modern era, business is now largely digital, telephonic, Zoom calls. It doesn't have to be in a physical location, but it can be in a physical location. And you should look at the world to determine where's the ideal location for your business. Banking. Why do you have to bank at the bank on the street corner? It's not a very good bank, but there are some large, safe banks that are headquartered probably in a different country from where you live that do an excellent job and would love to do business with you. Physical assets. These could be bars of gold. They could be your house. They could be your car. They could be many different things. Your stamp collection. It doesn't matter. We need a place to put them where it's safe. Digital assets. Nowadays, more and more of the things that are valuable are digital. These could be intellectual property. Where is your intellectual property? Is the country you're in the best place to store your trademarks and copyrights? Probably not. And then finally, let's get back to playgrounds once again. Maybe you like surfing, maybe you like opera. Well, Sydney sounds like a pretty good place. But you see what I'm getting at. What do you enjoy doing? I like mountain climbing, so maybe I want to have my playground be Colorado. Maybe I want it to be Nepal. You see what I'm saying? So now let's take a few more minutes and let's dive more deeply into each one of these separately. Okay, citizenship. One of the critical things when determining where you should be a citizen is taxation. So the United States, and I believe the Philippines, don't quote me on that, tax on worldwide income. Those are the only 2 countries that do it. So for an American, why would an American want a second passport? Well, safety, flexibility. For many, many years, Americans were not allowed to travel to Cuba, but a Canadian was allowed to. So if I had U.S. and Canadian citizenship, I'd just use my Canadian passport and go to Cuba. So that's what I mean by flexibility. Most major countries, the citizens can go pretty much everywhere in the world, okay? But what if you're from a poor country? I can tell you, people from poor countries, Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, there's a lot of countries they can't get into. A Filipino theoretically they have a treaty with a rich country like Singapore that they can go there without a visa. But guess what? They often aren't even allowed to get on a plane. So if I was a Filipino, I'd be looking to try to find a better citizenship so that I could go wherever I want to go instead of not having a lot of flexibility or not a lot of places that I'm allowed to go in the world. The freedom to travel is in the UN freedom in their rights list. I don't think they call it freedom to travel, but freedom of movement. But the point is, we want to be able to have your citizenship determines taxation. As I'm recording this, I'm in Dubai. Now, unfortunately, as an American citizen, I have to pay taxes on worldwide income. But what if you're a Canadian, or a Brit, or a Brazilian, or a Filipino, and you came and you got Dubai, well, you're never going to get to Dubai citizenship. But if you came here and work, we'll talk about that in a second, you don't have to pay any taxes. You don't have to pay any taxes back in Canada. You don't have to pay any taxes to the Dubai government because there are no income taxes here. So a lot of what your citizenship is going to determine is the taxation. But we also want, and so that's why you want multiple. One reason why you want multiple citizenships is you want to be in jurisdictions that don't tax on worldwide income. But you also need safety. Safety is another critical thing. We've seen in the past many times where people were stuck in a country because their passport was the wrong passport. Would you want to be Cambodian when Pol Pot was running the country? Would you want to be Jewish when Hitler, that's the classic example, was running Germany? But there's examples every day all around the world where we have just terrible things going on and the people can't leave because they don't have the right citizenship. If I was Jewish in Germany, I had a problem if I had just a German passport. But what if I had one other country's passport? Then I could get out of Germany with no problem at all. What if I was Cambodian under Pol Pot? If I had another citizenship, I could have left the country. So many people that I've met, they say, well, it won't happen here. No, that's not true. It's happened everywhere. It doesn't matter what country you're in, there have been political persecutions. There have been in every country of the world, and having a second citizenship would have allowed those people to leave the country. Now, sometimes they won't be allowed to leave the country, but I'm saying it gives you a big advantage when you want to leave it. Now, I'm sure you're not being persecuted right now. Listen, everybody who's listening to this video, probably everything's fine. But tomorrow, you don't know that. The future's uncertain, and the end is always near, to quote St. Jim. So we want to have multiple citizenships in order to have safety. And of course, as I say, flexibility, the ability to go someplace where maybe your country doesn't want you to go. Residence, where are you going to live? Now, to me, one of the biggest questions is, do you want to live in one location or do you want to live in many locations? I keep mentioning surfing because why not? So if I'm a big surfer, I may want to travel the world and go to different surfing locations all around the world. That sounds fantastic. And that means that's a completely different lifestyle than if you say, you know what, I just love the people of Thailand and I want to live there. Or, I love curling, I'm going to move to Manitoba in Canada because curling is my favorite thing on earth. If you don't know what curling is, Google it. But the point is that you have to decide where you're going to live. You have to live somewhere. But remember that your legal residence doesn't have to be where your body is. Your body can travel all over the place. This is the essence of the concepts of a laptop lifestyle or digital nomadism, which are very popular concepts, and they're fantastic. For me, I like moving around. I like going to different locations. I don't like being stuck in one place. I feel the world is my oyster, And there's just so many exciting adventures that I go through because I'm putting myself in countries where I don't know what the hell's going on. And that leads to small adventures, not big adventures. I'm not climbing Mount Everest, but where do I go to the bathroom and how do I buy a Diet Coke? These are things that become adventures when you live in multiple locations because you put yourself into a strange environment and you have to deal with it. But that's mind expanding, and that's what I like. But you don't have to like that. You may say, well, I'm going to live in Panama, but my legal residence is going to be in the UK. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And that's going to have, you'll find as we go through this whole long series of videos that we're going to have how to do those types of things, how to live in many locations, how to live in one location. Business. Well, your business doesn't have to be where you are anymore. And we're going to talk, as I say, a lot of the videos in this Global Freedom Lifestyle series are going to be how do you make money? Because you got to make money, unless you're lucky and you inherited a bunch of money, but I wasn't lucky enough to do that. So you got to make money. So let's say you have let's say you are fantastic at running florists. Okay, so then you're going to really be in one spot. You're going to go to a country that you love and you're going to open up a florist. But a lot of a global freedom lifestyle is you don't want to be stuck in any one place. So how do you make a living? Well, there's many ways, and with the internet, it's easier than ever. There's a million videos here on YouTube that'll tell you how to make $1 million using the internet. But I'll teach you the reality of it all, okay, in future videos. It can be done, not a problem. But remember, too, that there's other things you can do. You can be a writer. You don't have to be stuck in one place. And in fact, maybe moving around is the perfect lifestyle for a travel writer. You can be a consultant. Consultants don't have to be in one place either. So and I'll go into more detail, there's many, many ways of making money without having to be in one location. And in this series of videos, we'll talk about that. But you have to determine if you want to be in one spot or multiple spots, because it changes a lot, obviously. Banking. Just because you're in one spot or just because you're moving around, you need to know where's your bank, because you're going to have to access money. Governments around the world want us to all put our money into banks so they can get their hands on it. So where should you bank? Well, if you're an American, the FDIC protects your deposit in the bank up to $250,000. But of course, if you're an American, the government may come in and take it. They don't insure against that. But if you're Swiss, there's no insurance. Most countries don't have any insurance. So you need to find a bank that's safe. In other words, you need to look at the balance sheet so you pick the right bank. You need quality. Just because it's a safe bank doesn't mean they do a good job, okay? Doesn't mean they do a good job at all. Many, many safe banks are really garbage as far as their customer service is concerned. So we're going to help you figure that out as well. And then we want things to be easy. So these days, that means online banking is a good form of easy, okay? Some banks don't have online banking, believe it or not. They don't care about it. So we're going to go through banking is going to be a very big issue for anybody who lives a global freedom lifestyle. Physical assets. Maybe you own your own home. Well, that's going to be a tough one, but and many countries are very cheap. So a lot of countries, Panama allows foreigners to buy land. Lots of countries allow foreigners to buy land. Some countries, like Thailand, you can't buy land. You can buy a condominium, but you can't own the land under the condominium. And there's a lot of countries like that as well. And we're going to provide guidance on where you should be looking to put your home. A car, should you own a car? Should you rent a car? Should you use public transportation? These are physical assets. And then, of course, valuables, your stamp collection. Everybody has a stamp collection that's very valuable and very portable. You can keep it in your backpack, for heaven's sakes, and have $1 million in your backpack if you're into stamp collecting. That would be foolish, of course, but the point is, where do you keep your physical assets? Which leads us to what's becoming more and more important, your digital assets. So digital assets these days could be things like intellectual property is going to be the most common one. Your business may be a digital asset, for heaven's sakes, okay? You might be a blogger and making a lot of money on your blog, or you could be an Instagram influencer. Okay, well, where do you keep your back things? Oh, that's right, Instagram has them. The point is, you need to also protect your digital assets. This is becoming more and more important. When Harry Schultz invented this concept, wasn't a problem at that time, okay? But intellectual property is obviously becoming more valuable all the time. Playgrounds, what do you like to do? And generally speaking, I think you're going to travel the world. Now, it may be that you find the ultimate big wave and you want to surf only that wave every day, and so you find one location. But most people, they like to travel the world to their playground. So even if you're an opera fan, well, let's go to Italy and watch some opera. Let's go to London. Let's go to New York City. These are all great things to do, even if you're not like into physical things, but you're into intellectual things. Museums are a great playground. The British Museum, unbelievable, right? I'm here in the United Arab Emirates. Did you know that the Louvre is not only in Paris, it's also in Abu Dhabi? It's an incredible building. Unbelievable. If you're into museums, if you're into art, you're going to want to travel the world because there's great art everywhere in the world. So, I think playgrounds, there you go. So let's leave that for now. So what the thing is that what you need to do is this. I'll go to that slide. Let me wrap this up. These are all theory. And we're going to drive these to practicality because we have to act in the world. We can't just dream about having a GFL. We got to do a GFL. But the point is simply this. You need to sit down now and go through those categories that I put on our 7 flags here and start to think about where is it that you want to be. What's citizenship? You don't get to always choose your citizenship, but you have to decide if you want 2 citizenships. And then we'll talk about how you can do that. So the key is to start writing these things down. What do you like to do? What are your playgrounds? What countries are you interested in visiting or even living in? Write it down. Write it down. Start the process now. If you don't write it down, it's not going to be very important. That's the reality of the human brain. So write it down. Now, this whole series of videos are going to be, as I say, I've got one more on theory, and then we'll start getting into practicalities. Now, obviously, it's a lot of videos. There's 7 videos there, and I haven't given you my second theory video. So these topics are big topics, but I'm going to keep you informed of what's going on and how to do it. If you want help in this, we may be able to work out a consulting arrangement. I may be able to help you on some of the things that you want to do. And if you're interested, send me an email at that email address on the screen there, and we'll see what we can do to help you. This is not my prime business, obviously, but I've been living this lifestyle for years and years and years. And so I've run into the practicalities, the realities, not the hype, but the realities of living a global freedom lifestyle. I basically retired in the early 2000s and have basically been living this lifestyle ever since. So off a couple of years I didn't, but let's say almost 20 years of experience, which puts me right up there in terms of experience of a global freedom lifestyle. I don't know everything, but I know a lot, and maybe I can help you live this lifestyle as well. But definitely one of the ways that I'm going to help you is to continue this series of videos because there's really nothing like it in the world. And so, once again, one more video on theory, then we're going to start getting into the nitty gritty on a really basic but powerful, practical level after that. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you later.